Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Watershed. My name is Mark Cosgrove. I'm the cinema curator here at Watershed, and delighted to welcome you to this special event as part of our run of the film Selma. Delighted to have, as you can see, Roger Griffith, author, broadcaster, chief executive of Bristol's Ujima Radio. But I know Roger as well through a lot of the work that we've been doing here at Watershed in programming various strands of work and events like this. And Selma's part of a strand that we're collaborating on called The Impact of Conflict. It's conversations about cinema, the impact of conflict. And if you go to the website, conversationsaboutcinema.co.uk, you can find out more information. And as part of that, we were delighted to send Roger actually off to Belfast to introduce Selma at the Queen's Film Theatre, as I say, as part of this project. And you can see some of the documentation of that on the website. But we've just come hot from the author part of Roger, which is he's just published this book, My American Odyssey. And we've just had a launch of it with the Festival of Ideas. And the book will be available here at Watershed Bookshop, at Foyles, and through Roger's website. Yep. Yeah. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Roger, who's going to give a short 10-minute introduction to Selma. Roger Griffith.
Thank you, Mark. And just want to say a big thank you to Mark and Maddie, unfortunately, is unwell, and the whole team here today who give me a fantastic pre-launch to the book, because we're going out on the sorry, I have to see one of my old bosses here, so hello, Michelle. On the 19th of March. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm here only because of some of the, as I've just mentioned, some of the people in the room who have given me advice, who've given me guidance, who've given me help, who've, like Hugh, has had a look at a few manuscripts and give me some advice on that. To have, like Alicia just said, keep going. To my friend Mark, who's here today, just giving me that inspiration. And I'll talk a bit more about the work and how it connects through that. I'm delighted that especially sharing a really special day. It's I think I'll be able to sit down shortly and bask in that. Delighted to have my mother and sister here, so can I have a quick round of applause for them, please? Thank you. I've come down from London, and I wanted to talk about two things, just to introduce them, and I'm going to just read a very brief passage. As we said, it's we've done some work with Belfast and the Watershed, and through the Festival of Ideas, and it's all about telling stories, and I encourage you to tell your stories. And what we've been campaigning for, through the likes of some of you in the audience today, Caroline is here as well, is to tell a story of what we believe is a hidden story. And what I've done in my book is just link that through Britain, through the Caribbean, and also through the deep south of America, which is where you're going to see. Selma's an extraordinary place. It's an extraordinary place because it's just a really tiny. Imagine someone like maybe Bridgewater or Frome. It's not like a big New York City type of place. And these extraordinary events and extraordinary people that you're about to see depicted in the film, really made it a battleground and one of those places that rightly have its now place through the director Ava DuVernay, who's tweeted today about her great stuff that we're doing in Bristol, and through the likes of Dr. Madge Dresser and Edson Burton, and I'm delighted to be following their footsteps. We want to encourage our young and old, because I didn't get into the media game until I was 45. I left housing in my mid-20s, left the city council into a new career, so it could be with all of you. We'll say there's a book in all of you, but it's about telling your stories, and I wanted to tell that story about my family and my inspiration from the very same things that you're going to see on the screen today. And that's what we encourage through our citizen journalism programs, through things like Dubplate to Dubstep. And I'm glad to see Charlotte here as another recipient of and graduate of one of those programs that we've done. She's now working at City of Bristol, going to college, further in. I was with Mike Burrows just yesterday, just doing some producing for me, on Monday, sorry, when I interviewed the Lord Mayor. And that's what we're doing, okay? There's different ways of getting into education. It's not always through the university route. Places like BCFM, places like Trinity Community Arts Centre, places like No West Media Centre and our own Juma Radio are there as a forefront to encourage people through. We work with people like Mark and Maddie through the Watershed team and get those voices out. I'm here because of all of those people being a forefront because of that, just the arrow point. But behind me is a great team. Back to the film and its inspiration and kind of being there in the South. And I just wanted, before the film came out, I'd visited there, I'd heard of the story, and I thought, I have to go there. I have to visit. I did the march. So I want to take you to 2012. And I don't know, actually, I'm going to read and... yes, please. Right, thank you. Sorry? Only at your Debbie's bedtime. A bridge across history. Visit to Selma, Alabama. Each year, during the first weekend of March, a commemorative event takes place at the scene of Edmund Pettus Bridge, Selma, where the protesters were savagely beaten in 1965 on Bloody Sunday. The Selma Bridge Crossing Jubilee, to give its official title, attracts several high-profile participants, and the Olympic torch was symbolically carried across the bridge on its way to Atlanta in 1996. On Sunday, the 3rd of March 2012, I took part to pay tribute to those who had bravely marched before me. I parked near the Brown AME Church, where Presidents Obama and Clinton have each given the keynote address at previous jubilees, and walked towards the infamous towering metal struts of the bridge, where thousands gathered patiently in anticipation on the short incline. Like many Southern monuments, the bridge is named after a Confederate hero and defender of a system that we would recognize today as apartheid. The mood is respectful, yet jubilant. I am warned not only by the spring sunshine, but also by the presence of many flags of the Caribbean carried by local school children. I'm informed it's part of a local school project about the West Indies, and I smile as I pick out the Guyanese flag, fluttering proudly amongst them from where my parents were born. A signal is given, and we march forward, crossing across the flowing Alabama River. Suddenly, the black and white images of the past once more become my present. I can see the hatred of the watching crowds as they hear them braying savagely as the sickening sounds of billy clubs connect with flesh and bone. I can smell the acrid tear gas swirling in the air and shudder as the protesters blindly attempt to seek sanctuary to avoid the onrushing charge of a state trooper's horse. As we complete the bridge crossing, we embrace each other by monument to those brave foot soldiers. Speeches by many prominent politicians rouse the crowds ahead of the 54-mile, six-day commemorative march to Montgomery. Near the monument, Reverend Jesse Jackson unveils a bust of himself to honor his work. On display within the museum are Sheriff Jim Clark's billy clubs and his sheriff's shield. The 1965 march was well publicized and staged in broad daylight in the full glare of the world's media with thousands of eyewitnesses. Men whose primary purpose was to uphold the law had instead used violence to protect the Southern way of life that had outlived the Civil War and 100 years of segregation. Later that week, I, along with thousands, welcomed the Selma contingent to Montgomery. They include the Reverend Al Sharpton and Dr. King's son, Martin Luther King III, as well as Jesse Jackson. Once again, on the very steps where the Confederacy had been proclaimed, and just yards from Dr. King's old church, they implored the crowds to continue the fight for social and economic justice. I watched others speak out against increasing numbers of black males being jailed in America's war on drugs. This is what author Michelle Alexander calls the new Jim Crow in a book, The Mass Incarceration in an Age of Colorblindness. Disturbingly, in America, more black men are in jail than attend college. 8 months after telling Dr. King that it was not the time for legislation for voter reform, President Johnson signed the Voters' Rights Act in front of a smiling Dr. King on August 6, 1965. This act ended the barriers implemented by southern states to prevent citizens from voting. The effects were felt across the globe, and in Britain, through Dr. Paul Stevenson, passed its first race equality laws 3 months later, in November 1965. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that dresses the film for you appropriately. I hope you enjoy it. And now the film Selma. Thank you very much for your time.